Hello, beautiful people. Today is 12th of October. My name is Sahil, and welcome to the analysis on the Hindu newspaper as well as the important editorials from the other newspapers. Now, guys, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. So, today we will take a quote from the Lord John Boyd Orr. Now, the Lord John Boyd has been given the Nobel Peace Prize and he has been the first Director General of the FAO. He says, peace can't be built on empty stomachs. Now, guys, empty stomachs is a metaphor for the deprivations that the people are having. Now, guys, often it has been said that the conflict arises because of the people's material, sociological, and physiological deprivations are not met. And therefore, guys, it has been said that to bring the long lasting peace, the first step that has to be taken is to give them the material entitlements, and the first of all, we need to give them the food. Now, guys, this particular year in 2020, the Nobel Peace Prize has been given to the United Nations World Food Program, and this particular award also recognizes the importance of providing food to the people in order to build the long lasting peace. So, guys, this particular quote we can utilize into the questions of GS paper number 2, where the poverty and hunger has been mentioned. So, guys, this is all about today's GS folder, and now let's take the newspaper analysis. Now, guys, first of all, let's have an overview of the entire newspaper first. Guys, you can download the PDF notes of all the articles that we are discussing from our Telegram channel. Moreover, guys, from our Telegram channel, you can also download the infographics or the pictures that I use into our newspaper discussion. So, guys, the link of the Telegram has been given into the description. Please do join it and download. Now, guys, taking up the first news article, it pertains to the paper strip test or the Feluda test, which is to be released soon. Now, guys, this particular year it is very important because of the Nobel Prize of Chemistry which was given for the same technology which is utilized here. Then, guys, this particular article, though it is a political article where the Prime Minister is slamming the opposition for the agricultural bill, but guys, here the Swamitwa scheme has been mentioned because on its inauguration only such kind of allegation was made. So we'll see that Swamitwa scheme is. Then, guys, moving forward into the city section, the news with respect to the regional issues have been mentioned. However, guys, we are not important. These are not that much important. Directly, we'll be going to the editorial page. Now, guys, this particular editorial talks about a personalistic account that the writer is collecting from his grandfather's memory of 1918 Spanish influenza. However, guys, such kind of personalistic accounts are not needed in our exam. Now, guys, this particular article is talking about the recent RBI's monetary policy. However, already 2-3 days back, we had covered this entire issue. Then, guys, this article is talking about vaccine as a global common good. We'll see this particular thing. Then, guys, the food for peace. We'll see this particular thing. After that, guys, this particular article is just a very, very generalistic kind of article where it has been told that earlier the people involved into the fishing, they used to tell the people that you have won a lottery and they used to ask their sensitive information. Now just they are saying that you are involved into the fake government schemes by the different names, the schemes which don't exist, and by that way they are eliciting money. Guys, very generalistic thing, much substance has not been there into this particular article. After that, guys, this particular article is talking about the crisis which is going in between the Armenia and Azerbaijan on 28th September. From very scratch we had seen this particular article. Now, guys, from the editorial apart from the editorials of the Hindu newspaper, today I will be taking two editorials, one from the Financial Express newspaper and other from the Live Mint also. Now, guys, this particular article is talking as now just 15th Finance Commission is about to submit its recommendation, so the focus is to be given on to the urban local bodies. Now, guys, this particular article has given the case study of the Bangalore as how the municipal corporation is doing some active work. So, guys, when in this particular respect we'll see the ULBs and its role into the present times. Then, guys, moving forward, here we can see that the blue flag tag has been given to certain of the beaches, so we'll see that what is all about. After that, guys, here we can see that the school closures is posing their own opportunity cost, and a World Bank report has been published in this particular regard. Then, guys, the performance of RTI will be seeing with respect to the GS paper number 2. Then the showcase page, not relevant for our exam. After that, guys, the US election and all this thing is going on. Here, guys, we can see that China is granting the debt to the Sri Lanka for the infrastructure. So we'll see that what it could be the implication of this thing. Then guys, yesterday we had seen that the North Korea has unleashed their new intercontinental ballistic missile. So now guys, the South Korea is urging North Korea that it should not involve into such kind of behavior, and should restrict to the pledges that it has taken, that it will be following a peaceful course of action. Now guys, today is Monday, so this is the MoneyWise page. MoneyWise page contains the investing, mutual fund, etc. After that guys, the sports page, it contains the news with respect to the IPL, etc., all that thing. So guys, that's it, and now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. Now friends, taking up the first news, so this particular news pertains to the paper strip virus test, which is about to be released very soon. Now this particular news item we will utilize into GS paper number 2 health, as well as GS paper number 3 science and technology. Now guys, the test which we are talking about here is called as the Feluda test. Now the Feluda, it comes from, basically it is a short form of the FNCAS 9 editor linked uniform detection assay. And guys, one more interesting fact, the name Feluda also comes from a Bengali fiction character that was a Feluda detective, which was very popular in order to solve the mysteries. So guys, from that Bengali fictitious character, the name Feluda also comes. Now guys, the Feluda test, it is also being called as a breakthrough, because this test is very very cheap and very very fast. Now guys, into the Feluda test, first of all, the samples of the saliva or the blood will be taken, and most probably the saliva sample will be the sample of choice. Now this particular test is just like a pregnancy test, which is just, there is a kind of a strip on which the samples of the urine are poured, and onto the basis of that sample the color coded lines emerge onto the pregnancy test, and by seeing those lines we can detect whether the pregnancy has been there or not. So similarly, by that particular on that particular mechanism only, when the sample of a particular person will be put, then the lines will emerge onto a paper strip, and onto that particular basis we can tell whether a person is having the SARS-CoV-2 virus or not. Now guys, as it is being compared with the pregnancy test, but one technical thing I would like to make you know here is that guys, the pregnancy test, they basically detect the presence of a particular protein into the urine sample, whereas this particular Feluda test, it detects the presence of the nucleic acid into the into the sample. Now guys, I will tell you more about this thing. Whenever a woman conceives a fetus, then into his body certain proteins spike. For example, the HCG protein, it spikes into the urine, and by seeing that particular concentration, it is declared whether the woman is pregnant or not. But into the Feluda, we don't detect the protein, rather we see the nucleic acid. Is it clear? Now guys, moving little bit forward, so basically Feluda, it is more important because guys, it is based on to the CRISPR technology. Now if you are following with our newspaper analysis, then guys, just 4 or 5 days back we had also seen that the CRISPR technology has been given the Nobel Prize into the chemistry this particular year, and this test based on to the CRISPR can be very important for our exam. Now guys, we know, we had already seen that first of all how this CRISPR technology works. CRISPR technology is called as a molecular scissor. Now guys, just to brief on that particular thing again, what happens, there are certain bacterias. These bacterias are attacked by the viruses. Fine, when the virus is attacking that bacteria, so bacteria had developed a kind of a natural defense mechanism. That is, the bacteria, they secretes a particular kind of protein, and that protein is called as the Cas9 protein. Now guys, the Cas9 protein can read the viral code, or can read the code of that particular virus, and can make relevant changes into that virus's code, so that the virus doesn't stays harmful for the bacteria. Now guys, if basically there is an application of this Cas9 also, what we can do, if we can manipulate this Cas9, then guys, basically in our DNA also we can detect certain portions of our DNA if they are causing some problems. For example, sickle cell disease is a life-threatening problem and it is caused because the DNA is faulty. So by utilizing the Cas9, that particular section of a human DNA can be identified, it can be cut, and then that particular portion of DNA could be pasted with a proper and kind of a non-erroneous kind of portion. Now guys, when how Cas9 will be utilizing into the testing of the COVID-19. So guys, when the sample will be taken, basically the Cas9 will identify that within the sample whether the viral RNA is present or not. So on that particular basis, it can declare whether a person is infected or not. Now this particular test has been developed by the CSIR. Under the CSIR, there is the Institute of Genomics and Integrated Biology. It has made this particular test. And guys, this Feluda test is the first test into the entire world which is using the Cas9 for the identification of the COVID-19. One more thing I would like to make you very clear, it is not the first test utilizing the CRISPR. Earlier also there are the tests which are utilizing the CRISPR, but they are using the Cas12 or Cas13. This is the first which is using the Cas9. They are the variety of the proteins. Now guys, some more important things into this particular thing. This basically test is having 96% sensitivity and 98% specificity. 96% sensitivity means guys that if 100 people came to test, then guys 96% times it will give the true positive. It means that if 100 people came and 100 of them had the COVID-19, 96 people will be declared to have COVID-19. 4 people could be there who might not be declared as positive also. This is 96% specificity, sensitivity. Then it has 98% specificity. Specificity means that giving of true negative. Now guys, if 100 people came and 100 of them were not having the COVID-19, 98 people will be declared that they are not having the COVID-19, but 2 people will still be there who will be declared as having the 19. 2 people might not get the true negative also. So this is the difference between the specificity as well as the sensitivity. Please keep it in your mind. Now guys, the Feluda test, it is being called as a breakthrough because this particular test is very cheap compared to the RT-PCR. Right now, RT-PCR test is priced from 1600 rupees to 2400 rupees on an average. Whereas guys, this Feluda test will be costing just 500 to 600 rupees. Moreover, the test results of this Feluda test, they can also be derived within 45 minutes. Somewhere it has also been said that the test within half an hour can also be retrieved. So guys, into this particular direction, as now we are seeing the mounting number of cases, the government's prescription is to do more and more number of tests, and into that particular direction, this particular thing is being called as the breakthrough. So guys, with respect to all the parameters that I have told you, this particular article is very important. So that's it, and now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article, as I have told you, it has mentioned one good government scheme, that is the Swamitwa scheme. Now guys, a Swamitwa scheme is a very important scheme which is based on to the ideal of integrated property validation solution. Now we know that into our judiciary there are large number of cases which are piling up, and guys, within these cases the civil cases constitute a major chunk. And when I am talking about the civil cases, the property disputes or the land title ownership disputes are the largest category of disputes. Now guys, government had started the Swamitwa scheme where what will be done, government will be using the technologies such as the drones, satellite technology, etc., and will map the land parcels into the villages. And onto, basically after mapping these land parcels, first of all the land ownership will be established onto that particular basis. Moreover guys, into the villages people need to take loan onto their land, and that land has now to be verified manually, but by using drones and all that kind of thing, the land will be mapped very much efficiently and people can get the better accessibility to the credit. Moreover guys, government collects the revenues from the agricultural land also. And guys, the revenue is collected onto the basis of the type of crop that is being grown. Guys, I'm saying using the word revenue, not the tax. Agriculture in India right now is not taxed, but the certain crop revenue is to be collected. Now guys, going and physically verifying that on what particular land what crop has been grown is a very tedious kind of task. So for that revenue collection also, these when the drones and satellite technology will be utilized, that thing will also become very much efficient. So guys, the Swamitwa scheme, this is a very kind of a good scheme with respect to streamlining the land management. Now guys, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, State Panchayati Raj Department, State Revenue Department and Survey of India are involved under the Swamitwa scheme. Right now guys, Swamitwa scheme is being floated onto the pilot basis into the 6 states, whereas as the time will pass it will be rolled onto the entire country level. So right now the 6 states are the Haryana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Uttarakhand and the Uttar Pradesh. Please keep it in your mind. Now guys, one e-gram Swaraj portal will also be established onto which the land management or basically the land title, all these kind of thing can also be seen. So guys, that's all about this particular news article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now guys, this particular these are the two editorials which I had clubbed, and here we will be seeing the ULBs and how they could be reformed. Now guys, 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act are the historic milestones with respect to the decentralization. By 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, Panchayati Raj institutions were made, whereas by 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, urban local bodies were made. Now guys, it has been said that the urban local bodies, they are the engines of growth because much of the GDP is coming by the cities. But guys, into the present times, or if we see even earlier also, our urban local bodies have been starved on to the cash. They simply don't have money to finance their own activities. They depend on to the money transferred by the state government as well as the grants given by the union government. Now guys, as they are dependent on to the state government, we know that right now the state government's condition is also bad. For example, they had not received till now their GST dues. Secondly guys, even the money which will be coming, that has to be spent onto the health because the more number of testing is to be carried, more hospitals infrastructure has to be made. Then guys, even the money which used to come earlier, that is also not coming because the economic activities have been virtually shut down. Moreover, other kind of mitigating efforts are also to be given for which the money will be going on. So guys, the city's infrastructure will now be not be given much of the attention. Now guys, this is one particular aspect. On to the second aspect, if I tell you, this is also the time when the 15th Finance Commission is about to submit its report. Now guys, the report for 1 year, that is for 2020 to 2021, was the interim report which was submitted, but the full-fledged 5-year report of Finance Commission is to be submitted into the October, and that report will be for next 5 years, that is 2021 to 2026. Now guys, as I am talking about the Finance Commission, article number 280 of the Indian Constitution provides that the president should constitute a Finance Commission. That Finance Commission will recommend the parameters on which the money will be distributed between the union and the state government. And guys, within the article number 280 only, it has also been said that how the money can also be given to the urban local bodies. So within that, time to time the Finance Commission is established. Right now the 15th Finance Commission is about to submit the report. So that's it. Now guys, it has been said that as it is going to recommend, certain things should be done by the Finance Commission. Fine. Now it has been said that since the 10th Finance Commission, the urban local bodies are being focused more. Now guys, urban local bodies are given the grant in aid. Now grant are those money which are given and they are not to be returned back. And guys, as we have reached to the 15th Finance Commission, now guys, from 10th Finance Commission, 250 crore rupees which were being given at that point of time, now nearly 20,000 crore rupees are being given. So much increase into the grant in aid has been made. However, guys, if I tell you, on one hand, hefty grants are coming, but urban local bodies have not improved on their own self finances. If I tell you all the urban local bodies revenue, if we put together, then guys, it is even less than 1% of India's GDP. This data I am giving you from 2017 and 18. And guys, at the same time, if we see the data or the revenue collection from the other ULBs from the other emerging economies, their contribution is 4% to 7%. So you can see that how much less money our ULBs are making. Now guys, it has been said that a way forward has been given here, that how urban local bodies can generate more revenue, how their functioning can be made more effective, how they could be pushed into such a direction that they can actually become the engine of growth which they are being expected to be. Now guys, first of all, it has been said that, as I have told you, that the 15th Finance Commission will recommend the money that is to be given. So guys, it has been said that a conditionality should be imposed onto the local bodies, that is the hard budget constraint line. Now guys, they need to be given certain targets, and on to basis of the fulfillment of those target only, the grant system should be given to them, and there should be the performance parameters. If you follow, you will get the money, otherwise you will not get the money. This particular thing will push the urban local bodies into a competitiveness, because to get more and more money, they will improve the life of the citizens, they will provide more infrastructure, will work on to the traffic management and all these kind of things. After guys, local revenue efforts are needed to be enhanced. It needs to be said that we will put a kind of a system by which, basically you need to work on a system by which you generate more of the money, and by that particular how that money can be generated, I will be telling you into the subsequent points. Then guys, it has been said that there needs to also be to a grant in window. Now what is grant in window? The grant in window needs to be a facility that needs to be established, and within that facility, the urban local bodies should be allowed to borrow money from the state or from the center to fulfill the subjects given into the 12th schedule. Now guys, when the urban local bodies were made, 12th schedule was also installed, where certain subjects have been given, and those subjects were to be implemented by the urban local bodies. Now many of the subjects are not still being fulfilled. So now if some of the urban local bodies want to come and want to work onto those subjects, then for on that subjects, money can be given from this particular window. After that guys, it has been said that Reserve Bank of India should take a responsibility and should make an annual publication with respect to the finances of the urban local bodies. Now this particular, by this particular thing, the investors which want to invest into the urban local bodies, they will get the picture of the health of the public urban local bodies. Now guys, what I mean by the investor who want to invest, now guys, see this particular thing, there is an instrument, and that instrument is called as the urban local body bonds. Now municipal bonds are also, they are called as, by municipal bonds, from the investors the ULBs can raise the money and can do the development, and in mean course of time, as that infrastructure will give the money, from there the money will be paid off. Now, in order to issue the municipal bonds, the investors need to see the financial health of a particular urban local body, but for that thing there is no publication. Therefore now the RBI is to be asked that they should issue a publication or a kind of a report every year. After that guys, fourth, it has been said that article number 280 subclause 3 subclause C of the Indian Constitution needs to be amended. Now, what amendment is needed to be brought here? Please understand very carefully. See, under article number 280 subclause 3 subclause C, guys, it has been said that the grant in aid could be given to the panchayats or as well as the urban local bodies, but it has not been made very clear that they have a right over that money. It is onto the whims and fancies of the government that if they feel to give the money, they will give. Moreover guys, it has also been said that finance commission can recommend only money when the state finance commission at the state level recommends that we need the money. So for giving the money, report of the state finance commission has to be relied upon. Now in India, we have so many of the states, and so many state finance commission have to give the report, and unnecessarily the task is becoming very tedious. Now guys, into the line of the federalism, when officially three tiers have been made, that is the center, the state and the local bodies, then why this last tier is not being given the due attention? Why the state finance commission's report, and why such kind of discretion is being there? So article 280 is needed to be amended. Now guys, one case study has also been given here, that is the case study of the Bengaluru. Now the Bengaluru's municipal committee, that is the BBMP, now guys, they had started a smart paid parking system. Now within the smart paid parking system, what we can do, if anybody wants to park the car, there will be an application. Onto that application, he can know exactly the spot where the parking is there into the nearby area, and from that application only he can pay the money for the parking. Now guys, in this particular thing, the basically municipality is raising additional source of revenue. What happens, there are so many of the public land, and all the public land people are parking their cars. It is being said that this is a kind of an implicit subsidy. Suppose you parked the car for 10 hours and no money you gave, so if money would have been asked, you might have given some 200 300 rupees, and now if you are not giving, so that is a kind of a subsidy that is going to you. So that could be a source. Now guys, it has been said that on only few roads this particular thing is implemented by the Bengaluru, but by this more than 31 crore rupees will be earned annually. This is only by implementing on few roads. And guys, if only on 3% of Bengaluru's road this system is implemented, 500 crore rupees could be generated. Now this could be a source which already we were not utilizing, and we can learn from the Bengaluru. Urban local bodies can learn and can bring certain systems. After that guys, we also need to explore the utilization of the resources of the city. Now I can give you one example. Land is one resource, and this resource is very underutilized. For example, on land, property tax can be levied by the urban local bodies, but majority of the urban local bodies are not imposing any kind of tax. And if it is being imposed, it is not being collected properly, it is not being properly charged, and guys, much of the money is just going away. After that, the parking example I had already given, that how the parking should be charged at all the public places. Guys, it will not only bring the revenue, but will also improve the problem of the vehicular pollution. People will not unnecessarily bring their cars when it is when it is avoidable also. After that guys, government is having so much of the land at the prime locations. For example, within the city there are the bus stands, there are the railway stations. They have so much of land which is lying vacant, it is not being utilized. Now guys, if we take the example of the Bengaluru, they have their bus stand, they have converted into the official spaces, and by that they are earning so much of the rental money, and that rental money is helping to sustain that entire infrastructure. So guys, into all the major cities there is always the constant shortage of the commercial spaces. So commercial spaces, advertisements, etc., can be built onto the urban local bodies. So guys, it has been said that there is a large scope of improvement into urban local bodies, and by learning from the example of Bengaluru and the recommendations which has been given here, the 5 recommendations which has been given here, it needs to be implemented. Now guys, this particular article is highly important for our GS paper number 3, where mobilization of resources has been mentioned, as well as devolution of finances up to the local level, which has been mentioned into the GS paper number 2. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now guys, this particular article talks about the Nobel Peace Prize which has been given for the World Food Program. Now guys, as we are talking about the Nobel Peace Prize, it has been given many a times to very innovative mechanisms by which the peace can be installed. For example, for the abolition of landmines, the Nobel Peace Prize has been given. Then the Nobel Peace Prize has been given for the climate, for the nuclear and chemical weapons removal. This year it has been given for the food. Now guys, hunger has always been a kind of a thing which obstructs the world peace. And guys, United Nations World Food Program is feeding so many people into the conflict driven countries that now its effort has been recognized. Now guys, as we are talking about the United Nations World Food Program, earlier already we had covered it. It is situated into the Rome. Now guys, the countries such as Congo, Nigeria, South Sudan, there the World Food Program has played a very important role. Now guys, one very important thing which is there into this particular article, apart from them, a very journalistic things have been there. Now guys, it has been said that right now $4.1 billion funding gap is there. It means that if $4.1 billion money is somehow be mobilized, then nobody will sleep hungry into the world. And this funding gap is needed to be given by the World Food, to be given to the World Food Program. This thing will not only be improving the, or will not be working towards the hunger eradication, but will also fulfill in direction of the fulfilling of the sustainable developmental goal number 2. Now guys, just imagine this particular thing. Right now governments around the world, they are giving trillions and trillions of dollar of funding for the for bringing the economy back onto the track, and compared to that, $4 billion is just a very minuscule amount of money. So right now it has been said that the countries should come together and should work so that everybody has the adequate food, and when people will be having adequate food, much of them will not be falling into some anti-state type of activities also. So guys, this is such the basic idea which has been given into this entire article. So that's it. Now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article, it talks about to make vaccine as a global common good. Now guys, global common good means the thing which everybody needs and everybody should be given just because they have the natural rights, or because the theory of natural rights said that minimum entitlements should be given to everybody. So vaccine right now is that minimum entitlement into the face of COVID-19. Now guys, vaccine has been called as a lasting solution which can bring health, economy and social recovery onto the track. Right now, social recover, how the social problem has come, guys, you can see that now the people who were earlier poor, there against them there was exploitation, but now that exploitation has further increased. These people are now being branded as the super spreaders, or a kind of a touch me not behavior has just now become much more prominent because of this COVID-19. So guys, if everybody will be administered a vaccine, that social distinction which has now been created, that will go away. Economic recovery will be there, health recovery will be there, existential crisis which has come, we can also come above that particular thing. Moreover guys, it has been said that vaccine is so much important, and guys, because of this thing, all the countries, they are going into a race to buy up all the doses of the vaccine which are being developed. Even they are into the phase 3 trial, they have not been given the final approval, but still the countries are virtually buying all the supplies. Now guys, it has been said that a kind of a vaccine nationalism has come. Vaccine nationalism means that all the vaccines for our own people, but this kind of understanding is very wrong. Guys, the example of the Jonas Salk has been given. Now Jonas Salk was the one person who developed the vaccine for the polio, and you are knowing that the polio was such a notorious kind of disease, and so many people were basically getting impacted by the polio. He might have patented this particular drug, but he refused to do the patent. And guys, when it was asked that why you are not going for the patent, he said that can anyone patent the sun is the one which is driving everything onto this particular earth. How I can go for the patent of the polio vaccine? So such kind of spirit should prevail right now, and all the countries should go by a way of a compassion. Guys, this thing needs to be recognized by all the countries, that if even one person is there who is having the COVID-19, all the work which has been done will just be spilled. You can't recover by the COVID-19 by just safeguarding your population, because if any other person from any poor country will come into your country, again the problems will be there. So all the countries should come together, and vaccine should be treated as a common good, and for that particular thing it should be guaranteed. Even the poor countries, the vulnerable countries which don't have that much material capacities, to them the first preference should be given. So guys, this particular thing has been said, and again guys, we can make a comparison that right now so much of the fiscal stimulus is being given, and to give everybody a vaccine will just be causing the fraction of that particular cost. So on to this particular direction, the attention needs to be paid. So guys, this is all about this particular article. Now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article talks about the blue flag certification. Here, two beaches have been mentioned, but guys, we'll not be seeing only these two beaches. Rather, we'll see the 8 beaches which have been given the blue flag certification. So guys, first of all, I will be telling you some background what happened. Just a few days back, the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has just recommended that 8 of our beaches should be given the blue flag certification. These beaches were Shivrajpur into the Gujarat, Gogla in Daman and Diu, Kasarkod and Padubidri beach into the Karnataka. After that, Kapad in Kerala, Rushikonda in Andhra Pradesh, Golden Beach in Odisha, and Radhanagar Beach in Andaman and Nicobar Island. So these 8 names were put forward, and guys, all the 8 beaches have given the blue flag certification. Now, guys, blue flag certification is a kind of a tourism tag which is given to those beaches which are very clean, which are sustainable, and where the tourism can thrive. So, guys, these 8 beaches have been given. Now, blue flag certification is given by the Foundation for Environment Education, Denmark, and 33 stringent criteria are there onto whose basis this particular tag is given. Now, guys, basically, main themes here are that whether the clean and hygienic bathing water is there onto the beaches or not, facilities or amenities are there for basic things, safe and healthy environment, sustainable development of the entire area. All these things are the things. Guys, again, please keep it in mind that FEE, that is the Foundation for Environmental Education in Denmark, gives this particular tag. In India, 8 beaches are there. Again, I am showing you the name of these 8 beaches. Is that clear? So, guys, that's all about this particular thing. Very important for your prelims examination, and as well as it can be also utilized into the GS paper number 3 onto the answers of the tourism. Guys, it has been said that the tourism is the next big thing for India. Medical tourism as well as the leisure tourism. So into the category of the leisure tourism, having 8 beaches of blue flag category can attract much large number of beach goers into India. So, guys, that's it. Now we'll go to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article talks about the recently released World Bank report with respect to the impact of closure of schools on India. Now, because of the lockdown, subsequently prolonged lockdowns have been there and schools are closed. Guys, it has been said that because of this particular thing, India might be having an impact of $420 billion to $600 billion. How this loss will be there? Guys, because of the school lockdown, it has been said that a 5.5 million children can drop out from the entire South Asia, and major chunk of children will be dropping out from India. When they will drop out, guys, they will not be able to get the high paying formal sector meaningful jobs into the future. They will be doing some petty and odd kind of works. Because of that particular thing, their individual earnings will go down, their contribution into the country's GDP will go down, and guys, it has been said that because of that particular thing, the $420 billion to $600 billion loss will be there onto the country. We are not recognizing this particular thing, but we need to keep all this particular thing into mind. Guys, when we compare to our neighboring countries, India is the one which is having the largest number of might have the largest number of loss because of the large number of young population that we are having. Moreover, guys, it has been said that closing of school is not only impeding the new learnings of the children, rather children are also forgetting the old concepts that they have learned into the school. And guys, what happen, even if they are not dropped right now, when the school will open and when they will go to the school, and by seeing their performance that it is not up to the mark, they might develop a demotivation, and then they might can also leave the school. So, guys, this is the implication onto the education of the lockdown. So for GS paper number 2, you can utilize this particular thing. So, guys, please keep it in your mind. So that's it. Now we'll move to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article is talking about the RTI. Right now, a report has been published by the Satark Nagarik Sangathan as well as the Center for Equity Studies. And according to this particular report, it has been said that 15 years are there since the RTI Act has been passed, but till now, the children, people have not gotten the substantial benefit. Guys, we can utilize this particular thing in GS paper number 2 as well as GS paper number 4. At both the places, right to information has been mentioned. Now, guys, it has been said that nearly 2.2 lakh cases are pending into the CIC, that is the Central Information Commission as well as the State Information Commission. People has asked the information, but they have not got it. Now, guys, it has been said that there are increased vacancies at both the center level as well as the state level, and because so many vacancies are there, the information commissions are not able to work at their optimum capacity. Guys, most pending number of cases into the Central Information Commission is into the Uttar Pradesh. Guys, as per the RTI Act, it has been said that the every information commission needs to have a chief information commission, as well as it needs to have up to 10 information commissioners. But majority of the states, either they are having 3 or they are having 4. For example, if I give you the example of Odisha, it is working on to the capacity of 3 information commissions, and right now, seeing the present speed, 7 years will be taken to dispose of the cases which are piling up there. And guys, this is obviously not the spirit of the Right to Information Act. Now guys, it has been said that there have been large number of cases where the officials, they were found to be guilty of not giving the information, but no punishment has been given to them. Guys, according to the data compiled from the 16 of the information commissions, there were the 59% of the cases where the violations were there, and but out of that 59% violation cases, only in 2.2% of the cases the actual punishment has been given. And guys, it basically promotes the culture of impunity. It means that over the period of time, the public officials, they develop a kind of an attitude that whatever they do, they will never be get caught or they will never get a punishment, and that kind of attitude brings all the problem in our bureaucracy. So guys, it has been said that the RTI should not be only be respected into the letter but also into the spirit, and such kind of things should not be there, and the governments at the state level as well as the union level should focus on to such kind of things. Now guys, very directly you can utilize this particular report. Very important noting, please do keep this data into your mind. So guys, that's it. Now we'll move to the next article. Now guys, this particular article talks about the growing closeness between the China and the Sri Lanka. Guys, just a few days back we had seen that the China visited the Sri Lanka, the Chinese delegation visited the Sri Lanka, and guys, there some MOUs etc. were signed. Now guys, yesterday only I had told you that the Sri Lanka is saying that we want to adopt the China style development. They said that we are very much impressed by the China. And guys, we had seen that the Sri Lanka right now is not recognizing that the China always plays the strategy of the debt trap. What is the debt trap? Debt trap is a way in which the China will give the money to the smaller countries to build their infrastructure. So much of money the China will give that the country will not be able to service that debt. And guys, then the China will come and will say that okay, you transfer your infrastructure project, we will waive off your money. And in this particular way, China is grabbing the infrastructural projects into all the countries. And guys, the major focus of the China is onto the countries which lie onto the Belt and Road Initiative route. Now guys, into this particular thing only, this particular step is also there where the China is giving $90 million to Sri Lanka, but Sri Lanka has not recognized. Now guys, rather Sri Lanka has disproved the perception of debt traps. Sri Lanka had said that no, China doesn't involve on it. So guys, this is the only thing which has been given here, but I will give you one example that how Sri Lanka is wrong into this particular thing. Now guys, we'll take the example of 2017. What happened in 2017? Sri Lanka leased out their Hambantota port to China for 99 years. This particular project was started by giving loan to the Sri Lanka by the China, but Sri Lanka was not able to service the loan. Now guys, and because of this particular thing, they transferred this. So guys, this is the example of a clear-cut debt diplomacy that the China is developing. Now guys, China had given one more loan to the Sri Lanka, that is a loan of $989 million, because an expressway is being built from the central Sri Lanka to the Hambantota port, which is into the South Sri Lanka. And guys, this particular project might also be taken by the China into the times to come. And guys, this particular thing the Sri Lanka is not basically realizing. And guys, if we see the grand strategy of China, then the grand strategy of China is such that China wants to build a kind of a line of ports from the Chinese mainland up to the Persian Gulf, so that it can secure this entire region. And into that particular port line, the Hambantota is just a point. And in this particular way, China is putting Sri Lanka into the debt diplomacy, but Sri Lanka has clearly said that no, it is not the case. So guys, just these broad parameters you need to have it into your mind if a question comes.
So guys, that's all about the issues. I hope you have understood them all. And now we'll go to the question section.
Now guys, please pause the video and try to answer the question. Question number 1 is with respect to the World Migratory Bird Day. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question number 2 is with respect to the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question number 3 is with respect to the Global Environment Facility. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. Question number 4 is with respect to the Zoological Survey of India and the International Barcode of Life. Please read the statement and identify the correct code. So guys, that's all for today's question. I hope you are liking our discussion. Thank you so much.